Good evening. You're watching the news at 7:30 on ATV. I'm Edna Tse.
And I'm Anne-Marie Sim. Here's a look at tonight's top stories.
Occupy Central leaders all smiles as more than 500,000 vote in unofficial referendum.
77 passengers on flight to Shanghai stage 15-hour protest against delay.
State TV says 13 people killed in latest violence in troubled Xinjiang region. Almost 530,000 people have voted so far in Occupy Central's unofficial referendum on political reform. That's more than 5 times the number the movement was aiming for to declare the exercise a success.
Although Beijing and the Hong Kong government have ridiculed the vote, the group's leaders welcomed the huge turnout, following a massive cyber attack and the release of a controversial white paper which asserted China's full authority over the SAR. ATV's Emily Sue reports.
The 3 core organizers of Occupy Central were all smiles as they briefed the media on the latest figures from their unofficial referendum on political reform. Benny Tai, Chan Kin-man and Chiu Yu-mei handed out flyers in Causeway Bay to promote the vote, which began at noon yesterday.
I think that we have reached a record high for our civil referendum in Hong Kong.
Hundreds of thousands of permanent residents are choosing one of the 3 political reform proposals shortlisted for the 2017 chief executive election. And the numbers so far have far exceeded Occupy Central's original target of 100,000. On the second day of the ballot, the number of voters already reached a third of the turnout at the 2012 LegCo elections. At that poll, which returned 35 directly elected legislators in the expanded 70-member council, 1.8 million registered voters cast their ballots. Tai refused to estimate whether the turnout will exceed the 2012 figures.
I don't think I need to make any further prediction about the number of votes. Maybe just let Hong Kong people to make the record ourselves together.
Tai, who teaches law at the University of Hong Kong, urged people not to be too worried about alleged cases of voters using the identity cards of others to take part. Tai said only 10 such complaints have been received so far.
That's not a very widespread situation, and we have no evidence that there are any organized work to try to use this way to so-called hijack the system. I don't think the results will be discredited in any substantial sense.
Tai said those worried about identity theft can vote in person at voting booths tomorrow and next Sunday. The polling exercise was originally supposed to last until Sunday, but organizers decided to extend it by a week after its online voting platform came under world-class cyber attacks. The websites of Chinese-language newspaper Apple Daily, which is part of the pro-democracy Next Media Group, were also hacked on Thursday. Police have launched an investigation, but Security Chief Lai Tong-kwok refused to speculate on the motive or source of the cyber sabotage. Tai said if the attacks intensify and paralyze Occupy Central's online platform, the turnout could be affected, as the voting booths can only handle 100,000 voters at most a day. The movement's leaders remain defiant as Beijing and SAR government officials continue to discredit the referendum, describing it as a farce with no legal effect.
Strictly speaking, this is not a so-called voting procedure because it's not empowered by law. It is a form of public expression of their opinion, not unlike opinion poll, not unlike demonstration event.
If anyone who asserts that our system has problem, I think they should advocate or to call the government to organize an official referendum. Then all these attacks, all these problems can be easily resolved, and let Hong Kong people decide through an official referendum whether the government proposal is acceptable or not.
So far, voting in Occupy Central's referendum can only be done online. But tomorrow and next Sunday, people can go to polling stations across the city to cast their ballots. 15 booths on Hong Kong Island, Kowloon and the New Territories will open for 12 hours starting at 10 a.m. tomorrow. People can also visit the booths on the 29th of this month, while the polling station at City University will be open throughout the week from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. Emily Sue, ATV News.
Several flights to and from Hong Kong and Shanghai have been disrupted due to flight flow control measures introduced by Shanghai.
Almost 80 passengers on a Hong Kong Airlines flight spent the night on the aircraft after refusing to disembark when told the plane wouldn't be leaving on time. These 77 passengers on Hong Kong Airlines flight HX234 refused to leave their plane for 15 hours after their flight to Shanghai was delayed. They were among 200 passengers on a flight that was scheduled to leave Chet Lap Kok at 9 o'clock last night. They staged their protest on board the plane after they were notified their flight would be delayed. The group launched a strong complaint and demanded an explanation why they were not given water and food. They also said there was no air conditioning in the plane and they were not informed about alternative arrangements. There have been reports that the angry passengers were given $200 each in compensation. A Hong Kong Airlines spokesman said the delay was due to flight flow control measures introduced in Shanghai. Information about Shanghai's move launched yesterday evening is sketchy, but it disrupted several flights. Hong Kong Airlines has made arrangements for its passengers to take other flights to the mainland's financial hub. The airport authority issued a special announcement on its website, informing passengers about the situation and reminding them to check with the airlines before heading to Chet Lap Kok. Notices were also pinned up at check-in counters to apologize to travelers about the problem. This traveler said she went to the airport early to complete check-in procedures. In Shanghai, notices blamed the flight delays on bad weather in Hong Kong. The Hong Kong Observatory issued the amber rainstorm warning at 8:30 a.m., but cancelled it 2.5 hours later. Finance Committee Chairman Leung has rejected calls to step down after cutting short a debate on the government's plan to develop the northeastern new territories.
As the row over Leung's position continued, the chief executive again called for support for the controversial project, saying it will help ease the housing crisis. Emily Sue reports.
The Labour Party's Fernando Cheung and pro-government lawmaker Priscilla Leung clashed over the airwaves this morning over the conduct of Finance Committee Chairman Leung. As thousands of activists and residents gathered yesterday at government headquarters in a peaceful protest against plans to redevelop the Northeast New Territories, there was drama inside the nearby Leung building. Suspended a debate on the government request for $340 million for preparatory work, after first refusing a pan-democratic demand to adjourn and then trying to shorten speeches from 3 minutes to 1. An hour after his motion to limit speaking time was voted down, decided to suspend the session. The decision angered the opposition camp and prompted Cheung to move a motion of no confidence in the chairman when the committee meets again next Friday. The Labour Party lawmaker accused of breaching LegCo rules and said he's not fit for the post. Cheung believes the committee's vice chairwoman and Democratic Party leader Emily Lau would do much better. The beleaguered chairman was praised by Beijing loyalist Leung, who said has been too nice to the opposition, giving its lawmakers plenty of time to air their views. She said having someone else in the hot seat won't ease the controversy or stop the pan-democrats from trying to delay the project at all costs. During a phone-in interview, blamed the democracy camp for creating chaos inside the chamber and said he did everything according to the rules. He rejected calls, including some from pro-establishment lawmakers, to step down, saying it's up to all members to decide. LegCo President Zhang Yuxing, who advised to adjourn the meeting last week, supported the chairman. Zhang said he doesn't think was biased. Chief Executive Leung Ching-ying defended the government's position again today and vowed to strike a balance between conservation and developing new towns in Kutong North and Fanling North to ease the city's housing shortage. He added that officials have already spent enough time consulting the public and published all relevant data for reference. Cho Kai, who's been representing village groups opposed to the development plan, said it doesn't matter who chaired the meetings. She insisted the main point is whether the administration is willing to withdraw or modify the project. Yesterday's protest against the proposal was peaceful, a sharp contrast to the scene a week ago when hundreds of demonstrators tried to barge into Lechko. Chu also said none of the villagers knew the two teenagers who were arrested allegedly for carrying weapons to the protest. Two boys, aged 13 and 14, found with knives, a metal hammer and other tools have been released on bail. Emily Su, ATV News.
There's been a sharp rise in the number of suicide cases in Hong Kong.
The number of men who took their own lives was double that of women, and this, experts believe, was because males were reluctant to seek help. ATV's Winner Wong reports.
There's concern over the growing number of people who commit suicide. The Samaritan Befrienders, a voluntary agency that provides counseling, says last year it dealt with 1,311 people who had suicidal tendencies. In 2013, the number of people who took their own lives in Hong Kong surged 23% from the previous year to 1,040. There were 845 cases in 2012, and in 2011 there were 833, the lowest since 1998. Most of the people who sought counseling voluntarily or were referred to the Samaritan Befrienders were in their 30s and 40s. Most of them were distressed because people they were close with were themselves suicidal. Marital and mental health problems were other big contributing factors. Last year, 3 children under the age of 9 expressed suicidal thoughts, blaming problems at school and pressure from parents. The Samaritan Befrienders noted that the number of crisis cases involving women was double that of men. But more men than women committed suicide. Last year, 644 males and 396 females killed themselves. The volunteers group says this might come from deep-rooted Chinese culture, where men may be less willing to express their feelings, seeing it as a sign of weakness. The group also cited suicide as a major problem in high-income countries, and many who take their own lives already have mental problems. It added that encouraging people to seek help early and increasing resources to assist them will reduce suicides. Winner Wong, ATV News.
Health Chief Leung has hit out at operators of private columbariums who raised charges by claiming that they'll get a license.
Ko stressed there is no guarantee that all operators will be licensed, and he urged clients to exercise caution when choosing where to place the ashes of their loved ones. On Wednesday, the government announced a licensing regime that will help regulate and tackle the problem of illegally run columbariums. Private operators seeking a license must comply with statutory and government requirements, including land lease, town planning and building safety. Those that opened before 1990 can apply for exemption, but if it's granted, they have to stop selling or leasing new or empty niches used to store the ashes of deceased relatives and friends. Speaking during a radio program this morning, Health Chief Leung said he finds it unacceptable that some private columbariums have been increasing prices before applying for exemptions. Ko warned that providing false information is unlawful, and he advised clients to ensure that contracts are foolproof. Otherwise, it will be difficult for them to seek compensation in future. Ko added that privately owned columbariums are not guaranteed a license, although many have applied to the Food and Environmental Hygiene Department, the FEHD.
More than 60 operators of private columbaria had reported or have notified the FEHD regarding their operation. And the FEHD will, within these few weeks, go to visit and inspect all these places to verify the number of niches and the other relevant parameters.
Ko said the private columbaria bill will be submitted to Lechko for the first reading on Wednesday. Once the bill is passed, unlicensed operators could be fined up to $5 million and jailed for up to 7 years. Police in Xinjiang have shot dead 13 attackers after they drove a car into a police station and set off an explosion.
State media said 3 police officers were hurt, but there were no other casualties. State television reported that thugs had crashed a car into the public security building in Xinjiang's Kashgar prefecture and set off an explosion. Police took decisive action and shot dead 13 thugs, the presenter said. 3 police suffered light injuries, but there were no other casualties, the report continued, without providing further details. It was unclear if the attackers used one or more explosive devices. The central government has vowed a year-long crackdown on terrorism in recent weeks, following several high-profile attacks. On Monday, mainland authorities executed 13 people for terrorist attacks in Xinjiang and ordered the death penalty for 3 others for their role in a car crash in Beijing's Tiananmen Square last October. 2 tourists, 1 Chinese and 1 from the Philippines, were killed and 40 other people were hurt. The 3 people in the vehicle also died. Last Sunday, knife-wielding attackers in western Hotan injured 4 people in a crowded chess hall. The 4 were hurt in a struggle with the attackers, but their lives were not in danger, state media said. 2 of the attackers died from serious injuries and a 3rd was arrested. Authorities have been on edge since a suicide bombing last month killed 39 people at a vegetable market in the capital of Urumqi. The incident was one of several violent attacks that rocked the mainland in recent months and which Beijing blamed on Muslim separatists from Xinjiang, the traditional home of ethnic Uyghurs. The 10 million Uyghurs in Xinjiang have long complained of political and cultural suppression by Beijing. Still to come on ATV's main news tonight. Ukrainian president declares week-long truce in conflict in eastern part of country.
Early World Cup exit for England after Costa Rica shocks Italy.
Six days, non-stop fun. Follow us on a fascinating tour to Guangdong. It's lifetime happiness to travel around amazing sights. 144 hours journey, visa-free to Guangdong. Tonight at 8. Karaoke craze spreads over Japan.
And when Japanese people drink, at some point they end up at a karaoke joint.
Indulging in Japanese traditional horse riding. Prepare to be overwhelmed by the world of Japanese culture. Begin Japanology. Tonight at 8:30. From the best-selling American author of more than 50 books, Dr. Stanley has spread his messages across many countries to heal people's soul. Learn to control your life. Don't be afraid. In Touch with Dr. Charles Stanley, every Sunday afternoon at 2.
The Electoral Affairs Commission has published proposed guidelines on election-related activities in respect of the rural representative election for public consultation. You can express views through written submissions by July 2nd. The proposed guidelines can be downloaded from the Commission's website, www.eac.gov.hk, or obtained at these locations. For inquiries, please call 2891 1001.
It is true that millions of asteroids hit the Earth every night. But behind the beautiful flash, astronauts are worried by their potential impact.
It's something that will happen.
With science and technology, the immense universe will not be a mystery anymore. Documentary World, Cosmic Front, Impact, looking out for asteroids. Tomorrow night at 9. Want to promote your latest products on television? ATV's 2014 Ad Easy package is the right choice for you. Our promotion reaches as far as the Pearl River Delta region and southern China, and our price starts at just $68,000. Call 2992-8890 or our mainland hotline now.
The US says it has agreed with France and Germany to impose more economic sanctions on Russia if Moscow doesn't take immediate steps to end the violence in eastern Ukraine.
The ultimatum came as Moscow rejected Kiev's offer of a ceasefire to allow the warring sides to work out a definitive peace plan. Ukrainian President Petro Poroshenko declared a week-long unilateral ceasefire yesterday to try and end the bloody conflict with pro-Russian insurgents in the country's east. It'll be a short opportunity for those who fight the legitimate Ukrainian authorities to give up their arms and leave occupied buildings, he said. The truce is the first step in a 14-point peace plan to end the insurgency in the Russian-speaking east. The unrest erupted in April after street protests in the capital Kiev toppled Moscow-backed President Viktor Yanukovych, and Moscow incorporated Crimea into Russia after people in the southern region voted to leave Ukraine. Western leaders praised the truce, but Moscow is suspicious of Poroshenko's motives.
It is premature to talk about our support for President Poroshenko's initiative. That initiative was not even sort of discussed in any detail. Whatever initiative comes out of Kiev, it should not be an ultimatum and it should not resemble ethnic cleansing.
Pro-Russian rebels in the city of Luhansk also rejected Poroshenko's plan, adding that he had no authority in the region. The Kremlin announced that it had sent armed forces near Ukraine, with a spokesman for President Vladimir Putin saying the move had been planned for several weeks. The White House described the decision as troubling.
There is mounting evidence that shows a buildup of Russian military forces near the border with Ukraine, contrary to the statements by Kremlin officials. And further reports from Moscow that the Russian Defense Ministry is considering creating military cordons in eastern Ukraine are also troubling. So we're monitoring the situation closely, and we will not accept any use of Russian military forces under any pretext in eastern Ukraine.
US President Barack Obama discussed the crisis in phone calls with French President François Hollande and German Chancellor Angela Merkel. The three leaders agreed that Russia faces the risk of new sanctions from the West if it fails to defuse tensions on Ukraine's border.
Time now for sports with Bo Lang.
And it's the end of the road for England.
Indeed, the Brazilian adventure is over even without completing their group games. England crashed out of the World Cup when tiny Costa Rica continued their giant killing act with a shock win over Italy. It's the first time in 56 years that England have been knocked out at the group stage. And it was a player who earns his living in London who ended the dreams of English fans. England are out of the World Cup after just 2 matches following Costa Rica's stunning victory over Italy in Group D. And it was Fulham forward Brian Ruiz who killed England's hopes of advancing. Costa Rica, who stunned Uruguay in their opening match, tried to seize an early goal, but Celso Borges' header went over the crossbar. Mario Balotelli then missed a chance to put Italy in the lead when his shot went wide. Just before the break, Ruiz headed in the ball off the underside of the crossbar to put Costa Rica ahead, sealing England's fate. The ball bounced over the line, but goal line technology confirmed the decision. The Italians continued to push for the equaliser in the second half, but their attempts proved fruitless. The 1-0 win puts Costa Rica in the knockout stage. Italy, currently second in Group D, must beat third-place Uruguay. England have nothing but pride to play for when they meet Costa Rica in their final group match. France are on the brink of qualifying after an emphatic victory over Switzerland. Arsenal's Olivier Giroud drew first blood for the French with a stunning header. It took just 66 seconds for Blaise Matuidi to double the tally after some careless goalkeeping by Diego Bengalio. Mathieu Valbuena added a third for France 5 minutes before the break. The goals kept flowing for France. Karim Benzema took his tally for the tournament to 3. Moussa Sissoko made it 5-0 for France in the 73rd minute. Switzerland scored 2 late consolation goals. The first, a free kick taken by substitute Laurent Jameli, slipped through the French wall and straight into the goal. Granit Xhaka then bagged a second for the Swiss. But it was too little too late for Switzerland, and Le Bleu topped Group E after their 5-2 victory. In the same group, Honduras took the lead on 31 minutes when Carlo Costoli's powerful shot found the back of Ecuador's net. Enner Valencia's close-range effort levelled the tie 3 minutes later. Valencia nodded in his second in the 65th minute to give Ecuador a 2-1 win. France and Ecuador meet next. The Swiss still have a chance to advance if they beat Honduras convincingly and Ecuador lose or draw. But for now, Ecuador fans are savouring the moment of victory with celebrations into the night. In golf, Tiger Woods is returning to action after a back injury, and Lucy Lee, the youngest qualifier at the US Women's Open, has failed to make the cut. There was disappointment for 11-year-old Lucy Lee, who missed the cut in the second round of the US Women's Open in North Carolina. The American amateur, whose family hailed from Hong Kong, ended 16 over and missed out by 6 shots at Pinehurst Resort. Compatriot Michelle Wie surged into a 3-shot lead. She birdied her final 2 holes to card a total of 4 under 136. Fellow American Lexi Thompson fired a 68 on day 2 to sit in second place on 1 under 139. Former world #1 Tiger Woods is making a return to the sport after back surgery. Woods, who has won 14 majors, will play in a charity tournament in Maryland next week. The 38-year-old American has been out of action since late March because of a back injury, causing him to miss the Masters and the US Open last week. On his social media page, Woods said he has recovered well and is excited to take on the challenge ahead.
Hundreds of people in Manila have taken to the streets on wheels of another sort to drive home a point.
Skateboarders in the Philippine capital want a park of their own to enjoy their hobby. ATV's Arthur Urquiola reports.
The streets of the Philippine capital were jam-packed once again today, but this time motorists were joined by people on different sets of wheels. These enthusiasts were taking part in an international celebration, the annual Go Skateboarding Day. But while their counterparts around the world commemorate the occasion at their local skate parks, people in Manila don't have that option, and they want the government to do something about it.
Then when I get into it, I can't take it out of my life. It's a lifestyle. From a hobby, it turned into a lifestyle.
Skateboarders have been accused of being road pests, but they say they wouldn't annoy motorists and pedestrians if they had a place of their own to enjoy their pastime. Many have tried to get round the problem by building their own ramps in empty lots out of substandard materials. But they said if officials are really concerned about safety, skateboarding parks should be built for those who love the sport. Arthur Urquiola, ATV News.
A look at the weather before we go. Today was mainly cloudy with showers and squally thunderstorms. Temperatures ranged from 25.3 to 30.2 degrees, while the relative humidity was between 82 and 97%. Winds were moderate south to southwesterly. Let's check on the ultraviolet reading. The maximum recorded for the day was 6. Tomorrow's UV index will be about 5. Now for a look at the weather in the region. An active southwesterly airstream associated with a trough of low pressure is bringing thundery showers to the coast of Guangdong. And now the satellite images. Cloud bands are covering southern China. Here's what we can expect over the next few days. Cloudy with showers and squally thunderstorms tomorrow. Showers will be heavy at times. Temperatures will range from 26 to 30 degrees. More of the same conditions in the following couple of days. Here are the latest pollution readings under the Air Quality Health Index. General stations are at 3 to 4, meaning the health risk is low to moderate. Roadside levels are at 4 to 5, and the health risk is moderate. Finally, here's the weather around the world.
That's the main news for Saturday night. We'll have an update in 1 hour. I'm Edna Tse.
I'm Leung.
And I'm Anne Sim. Thanks for watching ATV. Good night.
Good night.
Coming up, 144 hours journey, visa-free to Guangdong.